Hey everyone, it's Cory from the Bradshaw Boys, and before we get started with the episode, we wanted to tell you about a few things. We are currently rewatching Sex and the City and putting out 2 episodes every week. One is going here on our main feed, and the other episode is on our Patreon feed. We want to get a massive rewatch going with all of you to get ready for the Sex and the City reboot, and just like that. So please join us by rewatching all of Sex and the City by listening here and then catching all the episodes on our Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/Bradshaw Boys, it's just $5 a month. You get twice as many episodes as you do on the main feed, and you join us for the entire rewatch. I mean, what a crazy deal, right? It's super fun. We'll get all the episodes in before the reboot happens, and you get to catch everything and be there with us. The other thing is, if you follow us on our Instagram at the Bradshaw Boys, we just launched a face filter in stories called Who is Your Sex and the City Boyfriend? It'll tell you who your boyfriend is. You just point it at your face. It spins through a bunch of guys, and then look, your boyfriend is Steve. If you go to our Instagram, you can check it out on our profile, go to the filters, or look for it in the filter store, tag us, and then we'll repost you so the world can know who your boyfriend is. All right, enjoy the episode, everyone.
Support for this podcast comes from PayPal. Small business owner? PayPal QR codes are the safe and easy payment option. It's all the security PayPal is known for online, in person. Cash only? QR codes allow you to accept credit or debit with everyday low fees. No additional hardware or software needed. Use the app to generate your unique QR code. Customers scan your code with their PayPal app to pay you. Learn more at paypal.com/us/getqrcode.
You're now listening to The Bradshaw Boys, a podcast where 3 relatively grown men binge the iconic HBO series Sex and the City. So dust off those DVDs and grab yourself a white wine or even a Cosmopolitan and settle in. Take it away, boys.
Welcome to the Bradshaw Boys, a podcast where 3 guys rewatch Sex and the City with you. And just like that, I'm Cory Cavin.
I'm Kevin James Doyle.
My name is Jon Sieber.
And today, our guest is a cookbook author and host of Home Movies with Alison Roman, streaming on any internet available device you have right now. She's also a fan of Sex and the City. Please welcome Allison Roman. Allison, thank you for being on the podcast.
Oh my God, thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
We're so happy to have you. We one of the reasons, other than all of us being a fan of your work, one of the reasons we want to have you on is because you recently did a recipe where you compared one of the characters of Sex and the City to short ribs, I believe. Is that true?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Well, we were filming on like a streak of me, because me, like you, have also just started rewatching Sex and the City, except I wouldn't even call it a rewatch. I would call it a first time situation.
Really?
Yeah. I had seen sort of like the later seasons as a young lady, but I never saw the early seasons. So I said I owed it to myself to go back and watch. And so it came up in conversation, and someone asked me what Sex and the City character these short ribs would be. And I said, it's got to be Aiden.
What was the reason for the short ribs being Aiden?
Because they're like hardy and reliable and, kind of, not basic is the wrong word, but like just dependable and classic and handsome.
Like well-made furniture.
Yeah, exactly. Like a shaker chair, where you're like, wow, is this like made in Ohio in the 50s? Which I think John Corbett may have been. I'm not sure.
That's totally true. I mean,
but that said, I also if you're only at season 2, you only have so many characters to choose from. It's not like season 8 where you've got 8 seasons worth of boyfriends to pick from. So.
Right.
So,
are there any other obvious food analogies to characters that we may have missed on our first watching?
Well, she's working on a video of matzo ball soup for Shmuel.
That's too obvious. That's too, you have to go deeper. You have to go deeper.
Yeah.
You have to I couldn't say who Miranda was as a food. That would be too complex. I think that would be. I would need to write a full paper on that.
Okay.
Before I just started spouting off guesses.
What was your experience with the rewatch like? Like what in comparison to other TV that's out there now? Because I guess now with streaming, not everybody has to be watching the new shows, like, and so you can just dip back into any old show. What was it like? I mean, what show were you watching like before you watched Sex and the City, and how did it compare? Was it nostalgic, or was it like this holds up, or like this isn't that great? What do you think?
I haven't rewatched any old shows because I typically there's not a show. Although I did watch The Sopranos about 7 years after everybody else, so I do have a sort of. I am sort of always behind. Where like I just started watching Billions. It's like, hey, have you guys heard of that show? Billions?
Okay.
It's pretty good. Yeah, and that's not a new show. I mean, it's not Sex and the City old, but I think that Sex and the City, like the age that I was as it was relevant, I was either too young or I don't know, like I wasn't that into watching TV, I guess. But now I'm like, oh, that's exactly where I am. I am where they are now. So it felt relevant to watch. But I was watching I don't know, like the typical HBO fare, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Watching it, I started watching it when I was 32. I feel like we're all like the ages of the characters, and it's it's weird this
basically.
restarting it and just being 4 years older.
And I was like, I'm like a
they're
single
referencing
lady
my
living
exact
in Manhattan.
age in these episodes now.
Yeah, exactly. I live in Brooklyn, but you get the idea. Big Apple. But I was like, okay, like that's where I'm at, and that's where they're at. I was feeling a connection, and I have a really close friend of mine who has seen every episode probably more than twice, and she's always referencing it in my own life, where I'll be telling her a story, and she's like, well, that's just like insert plot line here, and they're totally lost on me. So I was like, it's about time that I learned and see for myself what this is all about.
Yeah, you're just watching it so you can like actually converse with your friend. Be like, I get it.
Yeah,
I
want to
participate. I understand what you're saying to me.
Yeah, I only want to participate in the most cutting edge and relevant cultural conversations. So I'm watching Sex and the City.
Yeah.
What's the classic question? Who are you? And it can be a comparison. It can be half Samantha, half Charlotte, or anything like that. But do you especially relate to one of the characters?
Yeah, I unfortunately relate to Carrie, which is, I feel like what a lot of women say. Like a lot of women think they're a Carrie, but they're a someone else. But I truly am. And I think that in different parts of my life, depending on like the time of year and where I'm at, I feel like I've got a 75% Carrie and like a 25% any of the other three women.
Interesting.
I said to someone that I was a Carrie with a Miranda Rising. And they were like, no, you're definitely more Samantha. And I would never say that about myself, except for like maybe for like a few select months a year when the weather gets nice or something,
except during Samantha season. Yeah,
there's like a Samantha season, but it's I wouldn't say as a part of my personality.
That's it. Which one of the four major women do you think is the best cook? We don't see them cooking much in the show, but I was curious if there's any personality traits in any of them that stick out that are indicators of skill in the kitchen.
I would say hands down Charlotte, because she's sort of the nurturer, she's the caretaker, she's the homemaker, she wants to impress men, she wants to sort of come across as like a good wife or good wife material. So I think she, in her thirst for that and to be sort of considered like a good option to take as a bride, that she would think of home economics as like an appealing character trait. So I could see her being like, I took a 3-week cooking class and now I know how to make lobster thermidor.
And that's actually really, you reminded me when she first marries Harry, she actually does learn how to do like classic Jewish cooking and prepares for him like a big meal that he's,
and I have seen that
he's distracted watching sports or something like that. But that you're absolutely right on that. Yeah.
And he's watching baseball and she's like, turn off the TV. I made you Shabbat dinner. She put the thing on her head. The whole thing. Yeah. Disrespectful, honestly, Harry. People are always like, Harry's the best one. I'm like, he has his moments.
Our first hot take, our first hot Harry take.
Yeah.
I love Harry. He is great. No, he is great. I mean, we're all fallible. We're all imperfect.
Yeah.
And Charlotte honestly seems like a nightmare, to be honest. So I get it. He's
wow, that is. I don't know if that's our first hot Charlotte take. but there's a little bit of one there.
Really?
Why would Charlotte be? Why would she seem like a nightmare? I mean, like I don't know. I feel like we've dug at all the women.
Yeah, I mean they're all imperfect characters, and I think that part of the fun is them sort of exacerbating their own flaws for our enjoyment. And she to me is like annoying as hell, right? Like she's like everything is so perfect all the time. Like the way that in the episode that we're going to talk about, like her inability to be comfortable with sex and like her she's so judgmental about so many things. And it's like she decides to do all these things, and if they're not done perfectly every way, it's like she can't have a good time. And that to me is like a nightmare.
Yeah, totally.
I feel like she's the once she works through all her stuff, like because now we've seen the whole series once, and she would be, I think, the best once she's at her like peak healthiest, because she's so much more obnoxious earlier in the series, and also like not a totally consistent character. But then I feel like once if I was dating Charlotte, if I could hang through those first few years, I feel like maybe she'd be the best catch like 7 years into a marriage.
For sure.
That's what my guess is.
Yeah, you always want to wait at least 7 years until
we'd have like 4 breakups.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great indicator of a healthy relationship. If I could just hang on for the first 4 years, I think it'll be worth it. Year 7.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
And I'm not that far, so like I'm experiencing her right now for sort of the first time, even though like I have vague memories of what she's like later on. But it's weird because it's like you watch them all evolve through 8 years as like actual people.
Yeah. Yeah, our big thing with Charlotte is like we felt like she eventually gets what she wants, and then it all falls apart, and then she goes through a big character arc of like wanting this perfect life, and then it doesn't work out at all, and that's how she meets Harry, and then by the time she's met Harry, she's like already been through a failed marriage, already dated so many different people, and so she really grows a lot. But I do feel like right now you're getting like peak Charlotte. Like has been to cotillion and is like wants this like perfect New York City life and everything.
Yeah, but I do appreciate her.
What's your?
Oh no, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, there's like delay. I appreciate her optimism.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I was gonna say, what are your thoughts on them bringing the show back? What are you like? Excited, nervous, all the different things, and like, is there anything? I don't know. Just any thoughts on the up and coming show?
I am nervous, and I don't think that anything good can come of it, and I don't think that it's going to go well. And of course, I'll watch it, and of course, I'm excited for it in theory. But like, I was talking about this with a friend the other day. Like, I think that when you're watching it, especially those early episodes, and like, there's a lot of shit in there that you're like, oh, that like wouldn't fly today, and like, how is that going to age? And totally. I'm concerned that perhaps unless I know some people in the writer's room and they're very funny and very edgy and very honest, but I'm just like, I would hate to see the show lose its edge. And I think that that's a concern of mine, to like be a bit safer. Which I don't think would be as good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's what I think. I think like it's just as much as I've seen the show now and we've like talked about it and do this podcast, I still feel like slightly an outsider because we started it like not knowing about it and kind of discovered it through this. And I don't know, to me it seems like a high wire act that I'm like, I just absolutely wonder how they're going to do this. Like there's so much anticipation, and I if it doesn't go well, I wouldn't be heartbroken because I'm not as personally invested. But the stakes are so high. I'm like, they know that too. They know that it's this difficult. So I don't know. It's just like, it's interesting to imagine in Hollywood, like, or in media, you just like, there's not that many high risk things as this. I can't think of another thing that is this high expectation in this, like, wow, how the fuck are they going to pull this off?
Has HBO done something like this before? I mean, I know Netflix like brought back Arrested Development, and there's going to be a Friends reunion. Has HBO done this? And if so, do they have a track record of screwing it up? Because I think there's also a world in which this is like excellent. Like they're bringing in the right people. They got the idea, and it could like really play off. But I'm just curious. Do you guys know of anything like that?
I don't know.
I mean, Arrested Development didn't necessarily, I think, pull it off as far as quality, or at reception. And there wasn't like the big break. And then the Friends, all like the Friends or Parks and Rec things, those are all going to be like 1 hour specials.
Yeah.
Like I think the best example of this is like Seinfeld doing a whole season of Curb. Mm-hmm. And so that was a whole season of Curb, and then they were able to comment on their characters, and that was essentially the smartest way to do a Seinfeld reunion. So,
Wait,
but
they did that?
Yeah, the whole season 5 of Curb is.
I didn't know that.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's them doing a Seinfeld reunion, and then George, all the whole cast is back, and they comment on like Kramer's like when he said the N-word on stage. They have that as a storyline. They have like George Costanza being like trying to get into like kind of be a pretentious actor.
Oh, it's like character by character though. It's like not the crew of them. It's
all 4 of them over the whole season of Curb doing a Seinfeld reunion, and that's the whole story arc.
As themselves.
So they don't, and so they use it, but it's not the same version, but there's some distance so that you're able to experience like the meta reality, and that's where I feel like maybe there's an advantage, the fact that Samantha's not here, that they can just make it somewhat of a new twist on a show rather than just do Sex and the City minus a character. So I think there's kind of a connection there. I don't know.
Yeah. What was that show that Sarah Jessica Parker was in? The
Divorce?
last one she did. Yeah, I
Divorce?
loved that show. And I thought she was so good in it. And I feel like if there's like a continuation of that energy, like it has to be really self-aware, I think. Mm-hmm. You know, and they have to be like in a remarkably different place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing about Divorce is that she is like the executive producer of it, and she's very high up in the reboot. So I feel like her level of control between that show and this show, like she is so smart in making shows that hopefully that will translate to this too. Because
she also loves to cook.
Yeah. We talked to her about that, and she was telling us about how she told us which kind of beans she was really into.
What kind of beans is she into?
I was going to say, I've watched, we know that you're a big bean fan too.
Matthew Broderick was soaking some beans last time we talked to her.
You know, tell Matthew you don't have to soak. Did no one tell him? Not necessary, Matthew.
We need to call her back. Yeah.
Dude,
we gotta get her on the line.
It's gonna be so great if we interview her again. We're gonna say that, and she's gonna be like, "What are you talking about?" We're like, "Last time you said the Matthew soaked beans." She's like, "That was like 3 years ago."
It was like right during the middle of COVID, and everyone was worried about food. Remember?
She's like, "Who are you? Where am I? Like, what is this?
What is this? Wait, who are you guys? Why'd you call me back to ask
Why
about
are you
beans?
in my house?"
This is great because I always soak my beans, but I don't have to do that anymore.
You don't have to soak your beans.
Oh my
If we take one thing away from this podcast, it's that you don't have to soak your beans.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Like not at all? No bean? Not at all?
No, you just put them in some water and
how did that start? That rumor?
I don't know, because any place that I've ever been, and like in any country, like at any level of cook and restaurant that I've ever seen, or like home cook, and whatever, it's like nobody I know soaks them.
That's so
it's
interesting.
like a thing that we do over here to like complicate and mystify the process, I think.
Interesting.
I don't think that if you soak your beans, you're ever going to have a bad time. Like I always say, like if you really want to soak them. Nothing bad will happen.
Yeah.
I'm just saying you don't have to.
Okay.
Right.
Huh.
Anyway.
Then it's like, why would you do it? Why would you do it, Matthew? Why would you do it?
One of the first times we've had breaking news on a podcast.
I know. He read a blog. He read a blog post or a recipe from someone he respects, because there are a lot of respectable people out there that will say to soak your beans. Yeah. I'm just not one of them. So
there's that entire 76-page Julia Child essay on soaking beans that he probably read.
That's right. It's like painted, plastered to the refrigerator, and here I am being like, "Don't worry about it. Don't even soak." And then it's like, I know. I'm speaking against her wishes.
Hey, don't do it. Don't do it.
Listen.
Julia Child didn't know what she was talking about.
No, she's great.
Let's go watch the Freak Show, because we could talk about soaking beans.
That's on our other. This is the Bean Podcast.
That's on our other.
Starting the Bean Boys.
Yeah,
Bean Boys is after this.
So let's go watch this Freak Show, and then we'll talk about it.
Absolutely.
All right. Here's what the Freak Show's about. We'll see you in a second.
You just saved so much time for me. Thank you so much. I'm not
You're
gonna soak.
so welcome.
My
whole thing is like, people are like, it saves cooking time. And I'm like, well, it saves like maybe a half an hour. But you're soaking your beans 24 hours in advance?
You just have to plan so much further ahead if you're doing that too.
I promise you, I've never soaked.
It's amazing.
This episode is brought to you by Samsung. Moms help everyone be their most epic selves. So for Mother's Day, help mom be her most epic with Samsung Galaxy gifts. Like their most advanced smartphone camera, so mom can take photos like a pro. A smartwatch with next-level fitness tracking. Samsung's best earbuds yet to help mom block out and turn up. Or the statement-making Galaxy Z Flip 5G that lets mom flex her style. This year, celebrate what makes mom epic with Samsung Galaxy.
This episode is brought to you by Simply by Frito-Lay. You have enough on your plate, but now there's one less thing to overthink with Simply by Frito-Lay. It's your favorite Frito-Lay snacks with ingredients to feel good about, like Simply Blue Corn Tostitos, Sea Salted Ruffles, and White Cheddar Cheetos Puffs. All made with no artificial flavors or colors. So enjoy what you love and look for Simply brand snacks online or at a store near you.
Episode 15, The Freak Show. After dating a string of freaky guys, Carrie turns freakish herself and freaks out the very normal Ben when trying to discover his secret freakiness. Miranda dates Manhattan Guy, a guy who hasn't left Manhattan in 10 years, while Charlotte dates the renowned Mr. Pussy and tries to make a real relationship out of it. Samantha decides to get plastic surgery and freaks out during the consultation. And now, back to the boys.
Welcome back, freaks.
The first time we watched this episode, we found out that it's either the woman that wrote this episode or directed it was also like one of the main producers or director of Greatest
Carnival?
Showman. No, Greatest Showman.
okay.
The
Greatest Showman.
Hugh Jackman movie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which it makes sense that they was just like, this is where she got her start. And then it was like, I can only do circus-themed media from now on.
Yeah,
Listen,
I was heavy on the circus energy.
I could do an hour ripping on Greatest Showman, and I won't do that because I know people that have worked on the movie personally, and apparently
Name
a lot of people
dropper?
like. Yeah,
Total name drop.
Well, but if anyone's seen that movie, I saw it the first day it came out because every Christmas me and my sister go see a musical and make fun of it. We did Cats last year, and
Yeah, we're
Greatest
gonna rip
Showman.
on Greatest Showman. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we're doing exactly what we said we weren't going to do. Kevin.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
But keep
No,
going.
we're about to. So he walks by, literally a old school circus freak, like a deformed person when he's like young, and then he literally like gets a light bulb in his head, and then they fast forward to later when he starts the circus, and no one's commented on that, but he literally like in the movie just like looks and is like, oh my gosh, I could put these guys in a circus, and like it's like the most messed up thing, and that's like the beginning of the movie, and I was like looking around like, and then they started singing, so you forgot about it. But yeah,
You're like, is anyone
Zendaya.
going to call this out? Yeah.
yeah, it was just like the
Why would we
cruelest.
care about that person when Zendaya's on the screen?
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
she in that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
I've never seen that movie.
That's
But-
who Kevin knows
Me neither.
personally.
Never seen it.
Yeah,
me,
that's
it's-
Kevin.
it's
went to
Kevin's
grade
name
school with
drop.
the
He's
Zendaya,
like,
yeah.
Zendaya and I went to summer camp together. Totally. That's how Kevin is involved with that. Totally.
John, can you
In
give
that project.
Yeah.
John, can you give us like a breakdown of the 4 different characters, just like their
Yeah.
storylines, to get our
Yeah.
brains around what
So-
we just saw?
Yeah, the concept of this episode were are all men freaks. Gary's wrestling with that, and you have Charlotte, who meets and is introduced to a notorious dater in New York City. I forgot his first name, but they refer to him as Mr. Pussy, a gentleman who thoroughly enjoys the cunnilingus and has a reputation for it. You have Samantha, who meets a banker that likes to be tied up, whips chains, style. After the first date, which was a little bit aggressive.
Like on the first date, yeah.
What's that?
Is that on the first date, right?
Yeah, on the first date.
Totally.
You have Carrie, who meets a gentleman in the park and does an undate. She's worried about freaks, so she meets a writer in the park, and she becomes the freak because she wants to find something wrong with him by looking through all of his luggage. And then Miranda just kind of has like a bit where she is with Carrie on one of the double dates and meets a guy who's never left Manhattan in 10 years and pieces out of that. And the question is, are all men freaks? Is everyone in New York a freak? Do we all have moments where we're freaks? And I love this episode. I thought there's a ton to talk about.
Yeah, I guess first question, like Allison is probably more qualified to answer it than us. Are all men freaks?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not. No, but I think it's all subjective, and I think that every person is. And it's like, how are we defining that word? I feel like that's like a very un-2021 word. Mm-hmm. But like, what if we're saying like, is there a deal breaker in all of us? I think is like a more contemporary way to say that, because that's essentially what they come across. But it's also like a oddity in each person, because before Carrie meets the man in the park, there's like there's like the sort of montage of all those dates where like each man is horrible. And for a very specific reason. Cue the circus montage again. But yeah, and yeah, I think that there is something wrong with all of this.
Do you think this episode would have gone a different way if she went on a date with Chris Angel, who is actually the mind freak?
I wonder if she would have appreciated his specialness.
Yeah, are you ready?
Maybe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
She'd be like, he wore eyeliner and he kept swallowing swords. It was so open-minded of him.
Yeah, that would have not. They would have not made it to date one, I don't think.
Dude, I totally forgot. I forgot about. Everyone mentions Tweety Bird tattoo guy, and I just forgot he was in this episode. And I was always under the understanding from my memory from when we watched this a few years ago that she broke up with him because of the Tweety Bird tattoo.
No,
and that's not the case at all. Like, she didn't even really hold that against him. I guess that was
the
like
best. He was the best boyfriend material. Also, like he is so hot. And but it's so funny. She's like, I met an editor at a small indie political magazine, and I'm like, okay, me 4 years ago. Every man I dated, and I like his like high waisted jeans and like fitted t-shirt. He's like, I gotta go play soccer, and like his whole thing was very familiar. The tattoo is unforgivable though.
I know that's a
actually
rough bachelor party.
That is like, I can't think of a worse tattoo. I was talking with my wife about like, what is the absolute worst tattoo? And like a Looney Tunes Tweety Bird tattoo has to be right up there with like the biggest blunder you can make.
Any Looney Tune character.
I was gonna say,
is
What about like a full back piece of Taz on your entire back?
I feel like
Mitchell
following the contours of your body.
Ben Affleck have
the tornado. I think Affleck does. Affleck might have a Taz tattoo for real. Yeah.
Who says sucker and succotash? Who always says that?
Oh, that's
Yosemite Joe.
Sylvester.
No, Sylvester.
Sylvester Stallone. He's a cat.
Sylvester. Yosemite Joe is like the
Sam.
It's Yosemite Sam. I was gonna say Yosemite Joe is like the off-brand cereal version of Yosemite Sam.
Oh.
Your mom's like, hey, I bought Rice Puffs, and you're like, the Rice Krispies, Mom. Come on.
I just had a really dirty joke, but I feel bad. I feel uncomfortable doing it because usually we don't have. I just imagine Mitchell Saylor, Mr. Pussy, getting like that Looney Tune that says "sucker and succotash" going down on a lady.
Yeah, that would be on brand for him.
Although
I don't think that guy has any tattoos.
No.
Oh man,
that guy.
I'm loving that joke. Really,
I had this feeling, and I didn't have it when we first watched this because maybe it was a different time, but like. As I watched this again, I was like, doesn't Mr. Pussy kind of look like Pete Buttigieg?
Yes.
He looks like Pete Buttigieg.
Saturday Night Live. Who's the guy on Saturday Night Live
Mikey
right
Day.
now?
He looks
Yes.
He looks like Mikey Day.
I need to look up Mikey Day.
He totally looks like Mikey Day so much.
I couldn't unsee it. I was like, this is freaking me out.
Oh my
gosh. I hated that character. I hated his face. I hated the way he ate that oyster. I hated the way he ate the fruit in that later scene. I hated his whole shit. I hated everything about him.
It's so funny because like you're such a perfect person to like talk to about, because like he is so food centric, and I also feel like in the food world, like oysters and figs are like two things that they are, you know, they're like in so many recipes and like they're like high. Yeah. And then he's just slurping them down just to be seen.
Can I also just say, if I were ever at a bar and like I met a guy and he was like, oh, my name's so-and-so, I'd be like, oh, nice to meet you. I'm going to go back with my friends. And I like saw him from across the room and he made eyes at me and like locked into my gaze and then ate an oyster in that way, I would light myself on fire and exit the building. I like could not imagine anything grosser. Like it was it creeped me out to such a crazy I was just like, I can't watch this episode anymore.
And then a woman comes out of the stall. Yeah.
Yeah.
The woman comes out of the stall. Oh, that's Mr. Pussy. He's great. Yeah. She's like,
She's like, once I passed out, you know, and you're like, and they're like, great. Like now I don't know. The whole thing was a real overshare.
Yeah. Well,
not to sound like a Charlotte, but.
No, I mean, that's when I was watching it. I was like, I've had, you know, on scales of 1 to 10, good experiences with sex and bad ones, but I can't imagine. I don't know. Is there someone who's so good at going down on someone that like everyone talks about it?
Yes. Never have I ever heard about that.
It's Pete Buttigieg.
Pete Buttigieg.
It's the Secretary of Transportation, everyone. Yeah. That's why we got him in there.
There's like a going down MTA joke in there somewhere. I don't have to make it, but
it's hey, stand clear of my closing lips, everyone. I'm going to fix the transportation. Come on.
Words that he has literally never said. I have never heard of that happening, and if it was like a singular experience that a friend of mine had, and it wasn't like we shared in that experience with the same person. Like, oh, I gotta try that, like with that same person. There's a lot of sharing among the friends in this series where they're like, they find out that they've dated the same person, and they're like totally chill with it, and like, how did this not come up earlier? And that's I've never had that experience.
There's a weird thing in Sex and the City that happens, especially in the early seasons, where they paint this picture of New York where it's like there's 400 people that all go to the same parties every night. They see each other and they're like, is so-and-so going to be at this restaurant opening? Is so-and-so going to be at this model party? And like, I know that happens in New York, but they live in such a small exclusive world where they're everywhere, and like 17 women have all dated Mr. Pussy, and like it's just it's such a kind of unrealistic world. I mean, Candace Bushnell did say that like New York was such a smaller place then, like in that time when she was writing the column. So I guess that makes sense. But yeah, it is weird. There's a lot of sharing going on. Yeah,
I did have an experience though, like last year, where I matched with somebody on a dating app and saw that we had a friend in common on Instagram or something who I was pretty close to, and so I asked her. And she's like, oh my God. She's like, I've never met him. I think I like know him through work things. But based on the number of friends that I have that have texted me asking about him, I can tell you he's an absolute hoe. And I was like, okay. And just like having that and I went out with him, of course. But I was like, oh, you are an absolute, like that guy.
Yeah.
Like classic Two Bridges, like fuckboy, like person. Where you're like, yes, you have matched with every person I know that is also single.
Yeah.
And like, and then I found out that I asked a friend, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we made out at a party a few years ago, but we never slept together." I was like, "Okay, that's fine."
Wow.
What's the experience doing apps when you're kind of like a known personality? Do people know you or like how's that go?
It depends. I feel like my demo is not to like gender it, and I don't think this is the case 100%, but I think it's largely women, and a lot of men know about me because their wives or girlfriends or partners, boyfriends, etc., are into cooking. But like generally, it's also like you can always see someone's Instagram, so like a high number of followers, like people like associate with being like, oh, like are you a thing, even if they don't know who you are, but. If you were perhaps in the news a lot for something, like then they know who you are, and like that's weird. But I met my boyfriend on a dating app, and he definitely like knew who I was, but it wasn't like a fan necessarily.
Yeah.
Did y'all end up having people in common, like we were talking about? Like, did you?
We had one friend in common, but not. It was not a romantic partner in common.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to talk about that montage where Carrie is like the carnival music first shows up, and there's all the characterizations of like deal break guys. I think there was the one who like got like really mad while they're waiting in line for a movie. There's the one who like stole a book from the Strand even though he was like loaded. What was does anyone remember the third characterization?
There's the guy that wait, did you mention the guy that yelled at the other guy in line
Yeah.
at the movie theater?
Oh, there was the guy in the restaurant who was a documentary filmmaker.
Oh yeah,
That's what
he
it
was
was.
like
And
making
he was-
the documentary about the seagulls, and he's
Yeah.
like, I don't want to do that.
He's
Oh
really
yeah,
famous.
he's like, I want to be Hollywood
yeah.
action movies.
Have you?
Yeah.
I would love to hear if anyone has had an experience with someone where there was. I mean, I think those are just red flags. Like where there was like a red flag that was like kind of unique like that, where it was an automatic deal breaker. Personally, the first two, like I would be pretty turned off by someone who is like making documentaries just to for a subject they didn't care about. That would be a deal breaker. The person who blew up and yelled at the person in line in the movie, that's a deal breaker. I think with the stealing from the Strand, I'd be like, what the hell's wrong with you? But I don't know if that would have been a deal breaker for me. I'm curious what you all think.
Yeah, I wouldn't have broken up with Winona Ryder after her shoplifting trouble. I would tell if it the fact that it was a local small business bookstore is more of a problem to me than the fact that they stole. I'd be like, come on, we got to support local bookstores.
Yeah, like it's not like he's lifting from a Barnes and Noble.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
totally. Yeah, and now Strand is having all that trouble all because of that guy. So it's like, look what his
Yeah.
actions did. Totally.
I think in the moment I would overlook it and think of it as like funny and like bad boy behavior and maybe be like quasi charmed by it, but it wouldn't work out obviously because that's indicative of a bigger personality problem. And looking back when we were breaking up, I'd be like, I should have known in that moment and I should have never proceeded.
Yeah.
I was like I was on a second location with a girl. This is like 7 years ago. This was like early.
What's a second location?
Well, we were at a first date. We were like on a date and we went to a second place.
So first date, second location.
First date, second
It's
location.
a very it's a very clunky way of saying second base.
Yeah.
I made it to a second location.
Yeah, you guys are all being
once.
very proper in my presence.
I was putting
appreciate
on my
it. Like, you're all
Sylvester
holding
shirt.
back.
We probably are a little bit because we used to have guests a lot, and then we did like just a year on our own, and the podcast just became us being like, it was like just became too. Yeah,
It is
that's
weird.
probably
You
just
do have
me.
to-
but
you do have to learn to like talk to people again a little bit.
Yeah.
And,
I hear you. I mean, 2020 really did a number on us all.
It really did. No,
But no,
second
the
location,
girl, we were having like a decent vibe, and then she was like, "Can I be honest with you?" I was like, "Yeah," and she did not look it, but I was probably 27, 28, and she was like, I'm 18, and I was like, "Nope, next, bye."
What?
And she was
How did that fly under your radar?
because she had she had like 25 on her Tinder, and they don't check IDs in New York, and she was like, I was like, "Oh, you're an FIT, like what?" And you know when you put someone's like origin story together when they're talking about, it was like, "Oh, what'd you do before school?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm straight in from school." And then when she said that, I kind of like turned off and had to leave, and she got pretty salty with me. But I was like, that's kind of like a pretty
Good for you,
dishonest.
because I know a lot of guys that are older than 27 that would be like, she's 18 and she doesn't look it? Question mark. This is
Yeah,
fine.
it was one of those things that is like there was probably, I can't remember now, but there was enough on the date that it was like there are a few other weird things. She just, I think, acted very young, and then I was also like, that's just like a really weird. I don't know. That's like a creepy lie to me. That creeped me out.
Yeah,
It's
what
also just
kinda-
too young.
Too
Yeah,
young.
totally.
Exactly.
Yeah,
If it
totally.
was, if the lie was like 20, I'm 2 years older or 2 years younger, but 18.
Totally. If she was like 24 or she said 27, but like that would be a little bit more acceptable.
But that was my freak show.
Mine was.
Well, okay.
I went on a date with a girl that it went to a second location, but at the first location, and we were talking, and she told me that she watched one horror movie every day, and I was like, really, really. And but she was really late for the date. She was like 25 minutes late, and I still like hung around. I was going to a friend's show, and then she was like, I feel terrible for being so late. she was like, let's go to another bar. I'll buy you a drink. It'll be near the show you're going to. But in hindsight, I was like, oh man, one horror movie every day, probably should have just like left. But we had some really good horror movie talk. But I feel like in general, if you ended up with someone where they were just like, all right, we're watching Freddy Krueger 3 today, you'd be like, oh God. Why do we have
that would be
together?
That's again indicative of a deeper, larger problem, maybe, perhaps.
Probably so. Yeah, totally so. Well,
John, what's yours?
I asked the question.
She's my wife.
She's my wife. Yeah, she's my wife now. So yeah, totally. Yeah, we have a beautiful son named Chucky, and we have another son named Jason, and a daughter named Annabelle. So there you go.
It's a beautiful family.
Annabelle is just a China doll with no eyes that we sing to every morning. Anyway, John, what's yours?
Yeah, I cheated. I don't really have a great one. You all know my dating history. I didn't date a ton before I got married, so I don't really have anything that was like a blatant red flag when I was dating.
You're the red flag. You're the person that just falls and doesn't date for 8 years and then goes on one date.
Yeah.
And is in a perfect relationship.
That's another through line of the show is that they're like, are all men over 30 that are single freaks? And then they're like, wait, are we freaks? We're single and we're over 30. And Miranda's like, no, we're just selective. And I felt that.
Yeah. She says something really great. I'm going to butcher the line, but I talked about it with my wife because it was a really great line. I think it's like, don't let worry break away your sanity. And like, I thought that was like a really great, just a like philosophical line for a takeaway from Sex and the City, because it's what happens with her. She's in a seemingly good relationship. She's so anxious about this idea of freaks being out there, and she lets it gnaw at her brain and ends up, acting in a despicable way herself.
I would say that, also like judging on their chemistry, Carrie and the Tweety Bird boy, that like, I felt like they deserved another shot, and I felt like they should have written that in. I would have really liked to see him come back, and I would have really loved to see them like him be a bigger central character boyfriend. Like I felt like he had could have gone the distance.
He was
you really like this guy.
I really liked him.
See,
he was like my type.
You're indicative of a lot of our listeners have talked about Tweety Bird. Like he's got a lot of fans out there.
Yeah. Justice for Tweety Bird.
Do you think Miranda brought up a good point with him though, that you can? Well, first of all, I don't think that guy was that unusual that he hadn't left New York in 10 years. But do you think that she said, you can judge a lot of someone by their friends that they're surrounded by, and like that's why she kind of like told Carrie to write Tweety Bird off? Do you think that's accurate, or do you think you shouldn't let friends be a barometer in your judgment of someone else?
I think yes and no. I think that like also there's something to be said for being like, hey, we're going to go meet up with my friend for drinks. He's kind of annoying. Like just FYI, out the gate, we've been friends for years. We see each other every now and then. We used to work together or whatever. Like we have this connection. I'm aware that this person kind of sucks. They're still my friend. We all have those people in our lives. Like, he did it, like giving the rundown and like knowing what to expect is super important. And like, one thing I really love about the person I'm dating now is that he gives me like a full debrief on every single person he introduces me to, and
slides
he's
over
always
a dossier.
spot on. Yeah, and it's so spot on, and like, but also that plays really well to like my desire to have as much information as possible about everything in my life. Where like I want to know exactly what I'm getting into. So he really like nails that with me. But if you're like, oh, we're gonna go meet up with my friend so and so, they're amazing, and then you meet them and you're like, what? Yeah. Like that to me is a red flag because it just shows that you're not aware. Tastes are not aligned. Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you're like, yeah, he can be a lot, or like, well, da. And, I think that I have plenty of friends that I don't, the one thing I've learned as I've gotten older, as I've dated and my friends have dated and some of them have moved on to get married to those people, you're not friends with their partner, you're friends with your friend. And more so is your friends are not dating your partner, you're dating your partner. And so like, while we're all so desperate for our friends to like our partner and for our partners to like our friends and it's like, you're the one in the relationship. And like, as long as it's not absolutely devastating or just like catastrophic, I feel like it's fine if you're like, not my favorite, or like when they're like, oh, you met so-and-so's new girlfriend, how are they? And you're like, not my favorite, but like, they seem really happy. She's really kind to him. And what can I, do I want to like go to the mall and gab with the lady?
Right.
Not really, but like,
you also
not
don't
my
have
girlfriend.
to. Yeah, exactly.
I think
that's really great.
Yeah,
I think that's true, and I think like
especially as we get older.
Yeah. Well, because
We're
your life goes, hopefully friendships last forever and family does, but at the end of the day, like a relationship is you and that other person, and people make it work in so many different other ways. And I think especially when you're I read a thing that's like relationships that start from like, I don't know, younger marriages from like 20 to 23 last for a long time, and then like 30 something but there's like this certain amount of time where the relationships don't usually work out. And they said it's when you're like, I don't know, putting your life together, you're not like totally settled. And I feel like those times are interesting because those are when your friends are like most important to you, or you're establishing your career and your life. And then you get to the age that I'm at now, like 35, and you're sort of settled down again, and you realize like, oh yeah, I do spend less time with friends. Not just the past year, but it's like you've weeded out having 100 friends down to like less so, and there's a few important people in your life that can like talk into that.
Yeah.
But then at a certain point, maybe you'll have kids, and maybe it'll just be like you and that other partner. You'll, so I do feel like that has to be like the North Star of like how's your
I also
connection
feel
with
like
that person.
with friends too. Like I feel like my strongest friendships are people that I met early in my life, and then people I met in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And like most people I met from like 25 to 30, like I never speak to again. Like you know what I mean? Like there's a fuzziness within that time frame. When you're like figuring yourself out, your sense of self is very easily swayed or watered down or whatever. Like you can kind of be convinced to be a different person. Yeah. Because you're still figuring it out. You're trying on different personalities. Yep. Whereas like when you're very young, you're kind of too young to know better. And when you're a little bit older, you're like, no, actually that's not for me. And like I either tried it and I hated it. And, I feel fortunate that most of my close friends that have now partners and they're married, I can spend just as much time with their person as I can them. Like my original friend. That's the original friend and the new friend.
Well, that's what John, I mean, it's very nice when your friends' partners are like your friends. Like John's wife, Katie, is like, I'm just as close with her as I am you. We spend more time together because of the podcast, but it's like, that's always the dream. That's what you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I feel like you guys like Katie a lot more than you like me, which is totally fine.
True. It is true.
She seems great.
She's great. We can't wait to introduce Allison to her. Yeah, Allison and her are going to be super tight, and Allison hates you, John. So
we're actually Kate's going to take your place. Katie's going to take your place, and I'm going to stay, and you're going to
go. The podcast is now 2 guys and 2 women. Yeah. Right.
You know what sucks is Carrie Carrie's messed it up with 2 freaking prime candidates. The New Yankee, season 2. We got the New Yankee.
Yeah.
10 out of 10, and Tweety Bird.
Yeah. Yeah, Tweety Bird. Yeah, this is also another weird instance of. I would like to ask you about this, Allison, because we talked about it ourselves. This is the second instance we've seen in the show of one of the women snooping hardcore in an apartment. Miranda did it in season 1 when she found the spanking guy's videotape, and like our stance on the snooping thing was like beyond just like going to the bathroom at someone's house during a dinner party and like opening the medicine cabinet, like beyond just like, whatever, or like opening someone's fridge, but like going through boxes and stuff just seems like such a terrible move.
Insanity.
Yeah.
And like, I don't even go through people's medicine cabinets because I'm convinced that everybody has like a Nest Cam or something. And like, I live in fear of like being caught. Right. Not that like we're not all curious, but like one thing I will say about all of my neuroses, in which there are a bajillion and like plenty of red flags that I personally have, I have never in my life like snooped or looked at a text message or an email or read a notebook. Not one time. I don't want to know.
Right.
First of all. And like, I assume that if there's anything I should know, they'll tell me, but I'm also like very big on verbal communication, and I'll just like ask things straight up. So if I were Carrie in that situation, like I feel like, you lay in bed, you wait for him to get back, and you have to be like, listen, I know this sounds insane, but because this is a non-date, I just have to tell you that I'm already freaked out that I'm going to discover something ridiculous about you, and I'd rather just know now. So tell me what your freak show is. Like let me see that freak flag fly. Yeah. Let's get it out in the open. But interestingly enough, I have an ex-boyfriend who had this happen to him after him and I broke up. He dated a woman very briefly. Calling it dating is maybe an exaggeration, maybe a little generous, but he was sleeping with this woman, and he woke up like in the middle of the night one night after they had slept together for like the second time, and he woke up and she was like in the corner of his room reading his notebooks.
What?
Yeah. And he was like, I like didn't know what he either discovered her doing it or she told somebody that she did it and it got back to him.
Oh my!
But like either way, the woman like woke up in the middle of the night and like read his notebooks and like it was like a whole situation.
See, I'm with you in that it's like I wouldn't do that because I don't even want to know what's in there. Like I don't.
No, it's not for me to know.
Yeah, and it doesn't even interest me. Whenever like, not.
Well, there's
not
literally nothing that could be in there that could be beneficial. There's nothing. Totally. There's no possible scenario in which this is a positive outcome. And so it's like, why the hell would you walk down that road?
Well, we also project, right? Like, I think that the reason that, like, people often that are cheating are the ones who are accusing their partners of cheating and whatever. Or it's like they accuse the person of something that they themselves are guilty of. So I think only a person with things to hide is the type of person that's going to, like, go looking through emails or looking through text messages. Because they're assuming that you're also hiding something.
Yeah.
We got some great Instagram responses to this episode, and I'd love to talk through some of these. The first question we had is a quote that I think I don't know who said it, but it was, if a man is over 30 and single, there's something wrong with him. It's Darwinian. Okay, what about us? We're just choosy. We have some thoughts on here. That was Miranda who said that.
Yeah.
Someone said this is a classic Sex and the City double standard. Miranda was being a hypocrite. Somebody said, I think 40 is the new 30. 30 is still young in today's standards, really.
Yeah. I think that's true.
I think that's very true. I think age is so different in our society now, especially with, I even feel like people that are in their 60s seem younger now, possibly because of like the internet or
because of
flip
flops.
Yeah, it's because of flip flops.
Because of Tommy Bahama.
Because of Tommy
flip flops. Totally. I'm doing this to justify the 65-year-old woman I'm dating. I'm like, she's really young seeming, guys. She's super young seeming.
She's the 18-year-old of 65-year-old.
She said she was 51.
Yeah. She that came out on our second location.
I think that the double standard is only there for the writing. Like, I don't think there's sometimes where they're like getting a message across that rings hollow. I feel like this is just set up for them to say that so that Miranda can realize like, oh yeah, they're the same thing. Like, I could definitely tell at this point they're saying that about guys, but it's like age is like that for, I don't know. The episode ended with like, we're all freaks. And I feel like that was definitely on display, like in that chat and chew. That's like, yeah, these women are having the same problems that guys are.
Yeah. You know, but I, as like a recently single person, I also had that thought where I was like, I'm 35 and single, but like, if I meet a man and he's 35 and single, like, what's wrong with him? And then my friend would be like, well, what's wrong with me? And,
yeah, totally.
You know, I think you can just be like, oh, like I've had this string of relationships, and like it's nice when a person can explain it. Just be like, yeah, I've been in. If you're 35 or 36 and you've never had a serious relationship, of which I know a few men that are friends of mine, I'm like, what's going on? And if I'm a single woman and I'm going on a date with you and I find out you've never been in a serious relationship for more than 3 months, then there's a huge issue.
Yeah.
I think. But same thing with a woman. If I'm a man and I'm going out with a woman and she's like, yeah, I've had a few boyfriends, none of them lasted more than 3 months, and I'm like, for 35, 36, like, what's going on there?
Yeah, totally.
And I feel like 94% of the people agreed, and it's only 6% disagreed. So that was that's interesting.
How do you feel about that? I have an interesting question. I love the way I patted myself on the back. I have a very interesting question.
Let's hear it, Cory.
Yeah, well, I got something that's really going to really turn all your clocks. No, but like,
buckle up.
Here, listen, everyone. I'm about to take you all to a second location. No, but the thing of like, is if someone's single in their 30s, are they freaks? But like in New York specifically, a lot of people in their 30s are not married, and 30s and 40s are not married. And I mean, none of the women on the show I don't think any of them have ever been married at this point. And John's married, but out of the 4 of us here, only John is married. Do you think that's something that is specific to big cities like New York? Like, is that a weird thing to not be married in your 30s? I would say no, because I think it's different here. I think all 4 of us probably moved here for something that, I don't know where you're from, Allison, but like I think where all of us came from, people got married earlier. You come to a city
I'm
like
from
this
LA. So
oh wow. So
yeah,
a totally different
I feel like
deal.
I grew up with the expectation that like I'm not old for not being married. Like, but I know a lot of friends that are like from Texas or from, the Midwest somewhere. And like every person that they grew up with, their family, if you're not married by 31, it's like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
Totally.
And I've never felt that. I've never felt that pressure before. But I think I think it is like a bigger city thing. But I also just think it's like more contemporary now. Like people are they're getting married later. They're having kids later. Like everything's kind of being pushed.
Yeah.
And, I've read several a think piece about this. Like, is it because of economic strain and like, people getting into their careers later in life? Is it, birth control? Is it like, I don't know, standards?
Yeah. 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 It's interesting because there's like a lot of the positives of it. And then it's like the same think pieces can come out and they're both correct. That like on one hand, it's like people are able to like wait longer to do this and look how it helps economically. And then there's another side that it's like, there's a lot of specific examples where once you get to a point where it has been pushed, that you then have to like kind of jump in and do it if you want to get married and have a family. Like I feel like there's lots of people in this generation that, I don't know, are in perpetual like adolescence. Like that's also a problem, but it's just, I don't know, people can do more different things with your life than you used to be able to do.
Yeah.
There's like,
I think more so with the men that I'm friends with that are single, there's this element of like, they can choose for forever.
Yeah.
And that like, they're afraid to commit to one thing because they're convinced that there's something better around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they're like, they associate companionship or like settling down with the woman with like the loss of their freedom and like all the cool shit they're about to do. And I'm like, well, you're not doing any of the cool shit now. So
that's funny.
Like,
yeah. I think just biologically, there's a lot more pressure for women to settle down. And if they want to start a family, there's a time element that's present for women.
Absolutely.
Because as soon as you hit 35, apparently you're having a geriatric pregnancy.
That's right. I just froze my eggs because I was like,
nice.
Better wrap this up just in case because I mean, you never know. But that was like almost like as much of a biological need as it was like an intellectual decision.
Yeah.
Where like I felt like I needed to like take action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm so happy that the technology exists for people to be able to do that too. Cool. It's like it's so exciting to be alive right now.
Yeah.
I know. I told my dad I was doing it and he's like, I think that's great. He's like, I don't care what people say. And I'm like, what? I was like, Dad, what do you mean? Who are people? Who's saying anything? Like,
all the
naysayers. Generally, this is perceived like a pretty cool thing for women to do now.
That's so funny.
Like,
he's like, we have the neighbors over here. They got lots of things to say about it.
He's like, don't listen to those other people. I'm like, who is saying that?
My mom the other day said, she's like, I just can't believe how quickly you guys are growing up. You're 35. Oh, man, all 3 of you were in school by then, which was just so nice. And like, she just like said something without noticing it. And I was just like, what the hell am I doing with my life? Like she was just off cooking, moved on. I was just like,
she's like, I had 7 kids by then. And you were like,
things.
right.
Yeah.
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 I was like, all right, well, let's get into it. Let's get into closets. Which is how much room do you need in a closet to have a bondage set? Because I've got a small
more than this one man has. I also want to say that the amount of time he is gone from the time he says like I'm going to the bathroom or whatever, and to the moment that she opens the closet, that is not enough time for a man to single-handedly get himself into that bondage gear.
Yeah, totally.
In New York, it's probably more like a bondage wardrobe because not everyone has closets. So he had to get.
It was like a walk-in closet. Yeah.
It was funny because if I were to get into any like high-level kink like that, I do think there needs to be like a suspension of reality and imagination, and like the last thing I want is just to be like thinking about like space, You know, I want to get like lost in it, not just like, oh, hold on, wait, squeeze over here, now spank me.
That's
okay?
not hot.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
not hot.
Yeah,
And I also have a friend that's like in the community, they call it, and
nice.
there's no chance that a person's just going to spring that on a person without knowing and having a mutual understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
fact check that plot line.
That guy was probably more just an enthusiast of construction, and it's like he's not in the community. He's just like a Bob Vila of BDSM.
No, and anyone in the community would take one look at that and be like, "This guy is an absolute hack."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Guy really needs
Bob
to work on his
Vila.
stuff. Come on.
Yeah.
Should we run through? Let's run through these bad dates real quick.
Yeah, that's
sure.
right. Well,
We gotta-
We asked our Instagram followers what their weirdest date experience / story was. We'll read off a couple. Someone said I've dated 3 musicians who made me listen to their music on the first date. Yeah, that's
pretty
like
tough.
making
First
someone
date.
come to your improv show or something like that. That's terrible.
That is real cringe.
Oh, a date once asked if he would call me his ex's name instead of my name.
Oh my God.
Hey,
That's
wait, he
horrible.
asked?
It's what it says. A date
during
once
sex?
asked. It doesn't specify when.
I'm gonna guess that it was during the doing it.
I was hoping that it was just like at dinner in front of the waiter. He's like, "That's my kink."
Whoa, this
call me
one's
a
great.
different
This is so Sex in the City.
What is
This
it?
guy got back with his ex on the phone while I was still naked in his bed.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there's
very
a
Skipper.
good yes, yeah, exactly. The Skipper one. Oof,
Yeah.
that's so brutal.
Push. We
Wait,
have this one.
This is
What?
listen to this one. Started crying about his ex and asked me to rate how he did on the date 1 to 10. That's amazing.
Oh my God, men are so sad sometimes.
It's so terrible. They really are. What's some of the
Like,
weirdest?
I don't know a woman that would ever do that.
No.
Oh
my
man.
God.
What are some of your? Do you have any weird dates? Any weirdest date ones that would be on par with any of these, Allison? To spring it on you.
I definitely have some weird ones that like I told a story the other day actually on a new episode of Home Movies, but it was like memorable to the point of like where I use it as like a hallmark of a bad date situation. It was the morning after. We didn't sleep together, but he had like we were texting because we had gone out the night before after our first date, and I'm like, oh, I'm really hungover, and he sends me a bagel like from like DoorDash, which is like kind of a baller move. It's like
Yeah, that's
Green
great.
flag.
cool move. But then the order was like sun-dried tomato goat cheese was the order. Like as the default, I don't know this person's bagel order. I'm going sun-dried tomato goat cheese, which like fine. But then we went out one more time and sort of like invited himself over, and I was like, this like sun-dried tomato goat cheese vibe, and like then this guy, and then the next day left like very early in the morning saying he had a doctor's appointment, and then I never heard from him again. Like the like sociopath like move of like going above and beyond to like send the bagel, get the weird bagel order, and then completely ghost you.
Yeah.
Like was not my favorite. And then there was a guy that I went out with once. This was years ago. We were at a restaurant, and he hands me the wine menu, and he's like, "You can order whatever wine you like." I was like, "Okay, thanks."
Okay, thank
And he's
you.
like, "Just don't make it pink because men don't drink pink wine."
What?
I think
And I thought that was insane.
The
And
con-
I literally was like, "Oh, I don't think I can stay here anymore." And he thought I was joking. And I
That's
was like, "No." I
crazy.
was like, "What you just said is so insanely like sexist and rude and just untrue."
That's insane.
the confidence
Yeah.
of both of those people to pull such like a hard food move on someone who is like worked in the food industry
know.
as a cookbook author is very stupid. It's very dumb to do that.
I have a question though, because I have my answer. What is the bagel? I do think it's a baller move. What is the bagel that you send?
You send like a toasted sesame cream cheese.
Does-
Maybe scallion cream cheese, maybe.
Nice. I would go. My normal order is toasted everything scallion cream cheese.
Yeah,
And I feel
that's a great blanket. Like, I don't know this person's taste at all. I don't know what they eat. Here is a
See, I think I do.
fail-safe.
I think I do too. I think I send him a bacon, egg,
Really?
and cheese and everything bagel, and then like,
so
and then
good.
like you said, poppy seed bagel with cream cheese or
Yeah,
something like that.
that's
and
cool
just like
too.
give him
That's
an
cool
option.
too.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
and a fresh
shoot,
squeezed orange juice if they have it.
Oh, Friskies orange juice would be baller. Oh, shoot. Mine would just be like straight up toasted blueberry, sun-dried tomato. That's what I would go with.
Did I tell you about the bagel order in front of me? Did I tell you about the bagel
No
order that happened?
No.
Bagels.
Wait,
Oh
no,
my
what
gosh,
was the bagel order in front of
Last
you?
Sunday, I was getting bagels for Katie and I, and this woman came in behind me, and she's like, "Can I have a sandwich on a bagel?" And she's like, "Roast beef." I was tracking. Roasted red peppers. Okay. Mayonnaise. Good. She ordered fresh mozzarella cheese right there on a cinnamon raisin bagel. Cinnamon raisin bagel for.
She should go date this guy.
I just
exactly.
Lord knows where he is, but
the deli guy was like, "What kind of bagel do you want?" I got the roast beef, the fresh mozzarella, the mayonnaise, but cinnamon raisin bagel? I don't know. I couldn't get behind that. And then someone said that's like similar to Cynthia Nixon's bagel order. Do you guys know her? I'm not sure. She's like trying to reclaim over.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do know what you're
No.
talking about. Yeah.
is this when she was like running for governor and people were like, she has her bagel weird?
Yeah. I need to find out what it is.
I looked it up. We tried Nixon's cinnamon raisin and lox. That's hers.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
I was going to try to find some sort of way in that I was like, can we talk about how this could work, Allison? It's like, no, I can't.
She
Sorry.
calls it a full load. And it's just a lox. It's like,
I mean,
it's
like,
your
not
classic
really-
lox spectacular bagel, but on a cinnamon raisin.
Not really
Hey.
bringing it home with the name either.
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
say, like, all
Here's the
for a
thing.
full load. But
Hold
like,
on.
not sure.
Open up for a full load, everyone. Come on.
That's a red flag right there.
Hello.
Yeah, it is. That is a
Yeah.
red flag.
Lord.
I have to be honest. For the second time watching the Freak Show, I really enjoyed it way more than the first time. I feel
I
like
did too.
I don't think I've been dating freaks the past 3 years since I watched it last, but I feel like it was way more relatable this time.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was fun.
I liked
it was a
it.
fun episode. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like about like like the freak in me honors the freak in you. And
Yeah.
as soon
Yeah,
as
exactly.
like you can find the freak that you freak with,
Yeah.
then it's all good. But like there's no pretending like that doesn't exist in somebody else or in yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
understanding that everyone has their thing is like a very important. And they address this later in the series with their super secret single behavior. But like everyone has a thing where if you put a microscope to it would be unacceptable or quote freakish. And learning to accept that in yourself and others is the only way forward.
And sometimes you don't know what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm sure if somewhere in the world like there's a person who would say that I behaved in a way that like just like appalled them or was
Right.
like freakish to them, and I probably am just being myself, and I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm gauging because I'm, you know what I mean? So
Those people are bringing
who's to
full
say?
load bagels to the picnic. So
yeah,
you know.
I mean that's like a whole separate breed of person.
Completely.
Well, Allison, we thank you so much for coming on the pod. Really appreciate it.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you
really.
for having me. This was so fun.
Yeah.
If we're excited for the new series to come out. We're excited to watch. Hopefully, we'd love to see you do like a follow-up video if there's ever another Sex and the City character to do a cooking video about. We're going to be the first to watch it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
please
I
let
will
us
let you know. I will let
Okay.
you know. I don't want to like beat a dead horse or anything, but it is like, you know, I'm on that journey. I'm watching the series, so like it's gonna come out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about it. You know,
Right.
it just comes out of you.
great.
I encourage you to do that. I think I'm just going to be waiting, like thinking about like, oh, what else are the food connections? So
I know.
I
Oh,
support
well, actually, here's one last thing. This episode, it opens with like
yeah.
phenomenal food content. Like they're at
Yeah.
they're at this party, and there's like this one scene of them at this like, you know, trendy restaurant, and it's like they show the kitchen and they're like cooking, and it's like feeling very real and very energetic and very New York. And then they go to the table and the girls are sitting there, and Miranda says something like, "I want more shrimp cocktail," and I've tried to like isolate that scene and like record it because it's me. I'm like literally Miranda in that moment where like they're all talking about like the men at the party or like doing something else, and Miranda's like, "I just want a shrimp cocktail."
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes,
That's awesome.
Miranda. In that moment, I am you and you are me.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, everybody go follow Allison Roman on Instagram. Watch her home movies with Allison Roman.
and you have a newsletter too, right? You have a weekly newsletter
I do.
that people can
yeah,
subscribe
it's
to?
called a newsletter.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's on Substack. But yeah, all that information's on my Instagram page. I won't point you to my website just yet because it's sort of under construction. But You can Google me or just look me up on YouTube or any platform of your choosing.
Awesome.
Great. Awesome.
Thank you. Everybody else, go give us a nice little review and sign up for our Patreon, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Allison.
Later, Taylor.
Bye. Thank you.
The Bradshaw Boys stars Cory Cavin, Jon Sieber, and Kevin James Doyle. The show is produced by Jeremy L. Balon. For more information on the guys, check out their website at bradshawboys.com, on social media at The Bradshaw Boys, and if you see them in the street, tip your glass. Thanks for listening.